Good morning and afternoon, depending on where you are in the country. Welcome to our webinar today. I am Michelle Amundsen from the JR Simplot Company, and I will be co-hosting this webinar. Before we get into it, and before I introduce your host, I would like to make sure that everyone knows a few housekeeping details as we go through the webinar. You should see on the right side of your screen a panel that has both an area for questions and also to chat as the host, or you can chat directly at me as the host. So please, if you have any questions as we go through this webinar, put them in either the question box or in the chat box, and we will go through and answer those as we progress during the webinar. Everyone is muted, just so we can keep a nice clean audio during this webinar. So if you need to communicate with us, please put it in the question box or the chat box. So with that, I'm going to again welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us and turn it over to our esteemed host, Colleen.
Hi, thank you. Thrilled to be back. I am sure that most of you out there today are dealing with quite a bit related to the current pandemic, navigating employment, figuring out how to serve your guests and customers in the best way possible. And our goal today is to give you a quick update on where we have consumer sentiment right now as it relates to the coronavirus, as well as dig into some of their restaurant use behavior. The last time we all came together, we were just navigating this pandemic and trying to understand, what consumers might want when states start to allow restaurants to reopen at any capacity level. Since then, we've now have most states are reopened, with New York coming on soon with indoor dining at about 25% capacity. So as we are in the midst of reopening phases, I thought it would be great to share with you what we've learned to date and how we can help progress innovation going forward. So let's get right into it. Where are we in terms of public concern for the coronavirus? Top box, very concerned. We've been tracking this since the very beginning of March, as you see at the bottom of your screen. We had a little bit of kind of like a bell-shaped curve that was on a complete descent right up until around the month of July, when we started to pick things back up. And of course, that has a lot to do with the news as it relates to the coverage about, whether it's spikes or it's beach use or it's schools, and whether or not they will or won't be reopened in person. So given a lot of that communication, as that connects to more testing and test results, we have seen a spike mid-August that was almost as, it was the highest that we had started to see there around the 14th, 62%. That puts us back to the early April levels where we had been tapering down. Since that fielding in August 14th timeframe, you fast forward to around the 18th of the month, we saw almost a 10-point drop in the very concerned bucket. And I apologize, I know we're in September. We're just about 2 days short of another release of data. So for anyone that is looking for the September figures, dataessential.com, you can click that Corona button, and that link will take you to a fresh report by Monday. So just to let you know, you will be able to see those September figures coming out on Monday. So given our very concerned spike in sentiment, where are we as it relates to viewing this more as a public health crisis versus an economic crisis? And since March, we had started out as predominantly a public health crisis in the eyes of the consumer. As it has changed over time, we got very close to being almost 50-50 viewed economic versus public health, as we had started hearing more about potential treatments, vaccine development. But then as things started to increase around testing and results, we start to see it swing back, more public health, less economic crisis at this moment in time. How does that impact our avoidance of restaurants? That's what we all want to know. Here we have seen some growing concerns, again, in that top box for definitely avoid eating out. This figure is actually a little above where we started in March, but that's no surprise. We actually were way higher in the middle of this compared to where we are today, but we've seen a slight bump since early August. The key point is, if you look at the bottom of the screen and you follow those red dots, what we're showing here is the demographic breakout of that 47%. Who is the most likely to avoid eating out at a restaurant right now? And we see that really skewing women as well as boomers. And boomers, of course, this makes a lot of sense as they view themselves as being part of a higher risk community. And with that said, I want to shed a little bit of a silver lining. If you look at all the little gray dots above the red dot, those are when it was higher in that top box throughout this pandemic. Every single dot was a time we have pulsed this question. At one point, we were pulsing every 2 days. We are now doing it every other week. So just to give everyone confidence, in spite of some of the increased figures we've seen around testing and results, we have seen a drop in avoidance for eating out compared to our peak. So we've not returned to the peak, which is good news for most of us out there. We continue to monitor this question and track it over time. So the last time we've all come together, we were really in a situation where we were discussing what if reopening, how might we reopen? Well, good news is since that time, we have seen reopenings, and I want to showcase for you some behavior among consumers. So what have they done and how has it changed over time since May? So let's just take a look here. The very encouraging news is that since May of 2020 to middle of August, we've seen an increase in usage for almost every format of restaurant service possible. We've seen double-digit growth in dine-in, which makes sense because it wasn't allowed in many places. So as more places allow dine-in, even at some restricted capacity, it's more likely that consumers will use it. Again, only around 40% are avoiding dining out, which means 60% are seeking restaurants to serve that purpose and dining there. And we see almost that number. Here we have 41% as of August that had dined inside, 34% that had dined outside at the restaurant. Majority have gotten food from a drive-through, takeout, 57% using the walk-up takeout or curbside pickup, even non-alc and adult beverage for delivery has obtained about 30%, a third of the population having used that as of August. We had not asked that back in May, so that's why you see a dash mark. So we will now start tracking this as well. In another month or so, we will refresh and see where we are. But I think this is really, really encouraging. If you're hesitant about reopening or struggling to figure out, I would say that the best course of action is to attempt a operation strategy that allows you to do at least 2 forms of servicing guests, whether that's patio dining and takeout, or dining inside and a curbside strategy or a delivery strategy. The more ways you can make yourself available to a consumer, that helps anyone that is not fearful, somewhat nervous about returning to restaurants or avoiding restaurants to still hire you to be their cooks and chefs, if you will. Here is an image that I think rings true for quite a few consumers out there today, and maybe some of you as well, who are, quote, working from home as your children are working from home. This is having an impact as well on our restaurant use behavior, what we hire restaurants to do for us, as well as our behavior related to shopping and cooking. Here's where we are today as it connects to who's working from home. So we have around 44% of households today that have the ability to work at least some of the time remotely from home. We have about 29%, close to a third, that are not employed right now. That could be retired or not working at all, unemployed. And then 29%, their job can't be done from home, 27% not working right now, either retired or unemployed. So think of it this way, is that 29% are following their prior routine, still going, commuting, driving, to a facility or a school in some way, shape, or form, continuing the behavior that they had prior to the pandemic because of the nature of the work that they do. You've got the rest of the population able to use a restaurant, but their routine has changed in some way. So that begs the question of, prior to the pandemic, how were food and beverages purchased and to what frequency during the work week. And what we see is that almost 80% were buying food and drinks on a typical work week at least once, with many consumers buying several times a week or 25% daily. Now that daily figure is highest among, you would have guessed, higher income households and millennials. 33% of millennials were buying food or drink daily pre-pandemic during a work week. So that's important for us to consider what type of losses in traffic we might be seeing and who it's linked to. The good news is there is opportunity for us to grab back some of that share we've lost. Again, almost 30% at 29, right? 29% still have the same routine who are following these same behaviors still. But then we had this other big chunk of the population where we've lost some share because their behavior has changed. So we've asked then consumers, so now that you are remotely working from home compared to prior to the pandemic you commuted, are you making stuff more at home? Are you using away from home more often, or has there been no change? And about half of work time food and beverage purchases have actually moved into the home, whether it be through coffee and tea in the morning, breakfast preparation, their lunch, or even in between the meal snacks. What we see is maybe single digits at best who are saying, nope, I'm working remote, but I use restaurants more often, right? That's much less common. So how might we encourage consumers for explicitly this AM daytime restaurant usage to get back out there and leverage us, hire us to fill our food and beverage needs? So we asked that question, and I think you can see that the answers are basically fragmented, but we can group them into some clusters. One being during the day, in spite of the fact that we're home and we're not commuting, we have all these other pressures now that we face too, which does not diminish our need for speed and convenience for morning and lunch. So keeping that in mind, how might we as operators service this speed need during the day? In addition, health needs and also making the delivery option cheaper. I think you'll see that 22% wish restaurants delivered locally themselves and didn't use a third-party service has a whole lot to do with that first point, wishing and hoping for no delivery fees. So perhaps daytime lunch specials include a discount or free delivery just during the day where those fees can kick back in for where we're most today using restaurants, which is for the evening occasion. I think the big takeaway for me from an innovation standpoint are those two items at the bottom of the list, around 18% of consumers, and this makes a lot of sense if you think about habits and behaviors, desiring, I wish I could go to, X place and be able to order for several meals in a row, place a schedule, and just have it show up when I need it. So imagine being able to have that coffee order that you drink routinely just show up delivered at 7:15 a.m. 3 days a week. This is not unlike being able to check into a hotel, check the list, have the coffee delivered between 7 and 7:15, Monday through Friday. You're there for a week for some sort of business event. Imagine if you had the ability in your operation to service consumers that way. Certainly not suggesting that we're going to capture all consumers with this opportunity, and no, it's certainly a struggle, but it helps us accomplish as operators two really big things: the questions around supply and demand and staffing. Imagine if you were able to have an order ahead or a pre-planned schedule for what might be going out the door during the day. This would allow us to better staff as well as manage inventory and know what type of demand might be coming at 10 or at 2 p.m. on a Wednesday. So I'm encouraged by that. I don't know how likely it will be that we'll see operators attempt to find a way through in ordering either in advance or ordering for several days at a time, but this seems to make sense to me as a good opportunity. Now, not all houses have children working from home right now. We're an aging population. You know that our birth rates have not been rising for many, many years, but nearly 2 in 5 have school-age children at home. So about 40%, I think it's 37 to be exact, have these other small people in the home that they now have to manage and cater towards, which means feeding them. And you might not be surprised that parents really could use some help during the day. So I pivot that to say, how might we as operators find a way to help service those that are stuck at home, if you will, with their fellow small people also working from home and feeding them. Right now, parents are saying, or grandparents, if those are who are in charge during the day, say, man, I'm looking for convenience. 75%, I just need to do more planning ahead. Yeah, right. Let's get real. We probably have been saying that pre-pandemic when it came to prepping their lunches, packing them and getting them out the door, which just turned into lunch money if that was financially affordable. Because the idea that you can both take care of yourself and your kids and teach them and do your job or look for a job or interview for a job and make these, grandiose plans to plan ahead is likely unrealistic for most parents today. They're, already struggling after these summer months. I mean, remember, we're looking at 7 days a week, 3 meals a day plus snacks that have been going on for months and months. So finding ways to keep it fun, right, very, very challenging. Finding it stressful to figure out what the kids are going to eat, the financial burden. And the big one that we predicted back in March was this need for excitement and how that was going to be challenging, especially given our abilities to cook and find enjoyment in it is very few consumers. So burnout. And boredom are huge factors that restaurants can come to the rescue if they had some interesting solutions for those remotely working that aren't able to just go out and swing by and pick it up from thinking about meals that kids might find exciting. So thinking about convenience and cost-effective offerings may be our way to help overcome challenges around breakfast and lunch day part traffic loss. Keeping that in mind when we talk about cost-effective solutions, that could be linked to things like minimizing delivery fees, specifically certain hours of the day. Also thinking about bundles and deals, not just taking single menu items and lowering price significantly. We do not see that as a sustainable strategy by any stretch. We saw many do this back in 2008, and it took close to more than 6 years to dig out of that price hole, because once you teach somebody it's 99 cents, it's very difficult to get that increase back up to what it should be priced. So keep that in mind, that you are better off coming up with cool new items that are priced slightly lower, or new strategies of bundling. And we'll talk about that in just a second. Or offering fees or buy more volume for a lower price. Those are better offerings than just dealing down your price points. When it comes to what's best for the kids, this is a big challenge that we see in the home is that if you have to execute during the day, you might have skipped lunch inherently, or maybe you would have eaten a later breakfast if you were commuting and not had the lunch, or skipped breakfast and eaten an early lunch. Either way, that behavior is completely modified if you have someone else in the house that has to eat to a schedule because they're used to it, and they're needing a lot more nourishment throughout the day. So what they are making for their kids now also needs to serve a purpose to meet their personal needs as well. And we already start to see, and it makes me giggle a little bit, it's only 20% that say they are just getting food from restaurants during the day more often because they got to be able to meet their need and the children's need at the same time. That is highest among men, as well as those household incomes that are higher. Most consumers are saying, I'm trying to pay attention to kid-friendly and nutrition, and I'm trying, a little bit more healthy foods. I'm personally eating more snacks because the kids snack more often. So there is certainly an impact of what we're putting out for our kids impacts what we too are eating. So keeping that in mind as we design solutions, restaurants really are best suited to offer something for kids and something different for the adults all in one meal without a lot of additional prep and planning. We have seen quite a few restaurants be innovative during this pandemic time and creating some real strategic tactics for consumers that have proven out to be quite successful. So let's take a look at what consumers have tried to date. Using upscale restaurants to provide an affordable takeout meal, 42% have tried that. Family meal bundles, heat and eat or take and bake meals, so stuff I can grab now and then heat it up later tonight, or those fresh meal kits where you buy several of the ingredients and you watch online the video of the restaurant chef preparing the food, or it comes with a set of instructions. Even cocktail kits for delivery and takeout to whip that up later at home versus having to go to the store and buy higher volume ingredients that you may never use again. We are seeing really good trial And then additionally, almost anywhere from 22 to 29% interested on top of those who've already tried, wanting to try these things. I think the biggest signal for us is the percentage who, after having tried it, want to keep buying these types of offerings. So when we think of convenience and we think of cost effective, these are other ways to do it besides just saying having a very, very cheap price point. And those that have tried and had success are looking to keep doing it. So these are likely specials or limited time offers that aren't going to be for a limited time. I think you'll expect to see your competition offering these solutions going forward in the future, not just right now. And so we talk to consumers and we've tracked this question, and it's super interesting to see how we've grown in time. What should a family meal or a bundle include? You might be surprised that the biggest jump since May is them wanting the works, an entree, an apper side, plus a dessert. Where we started was we thought it would just be pick one of these 3 entrees, and it's just a large serving. That's actually down since May. Or an entree plus a side or an entree plus a starter would be enough. We have 38% saying they're interested in that now, and that number's down almost 10 points. We are viewing this as an opportunity to hire you as our personal caterer, if you will, that can stretch that. Even if they're not eating the app and the side tonight, that means that's lunch for tomorrow or dinner for tomorrow night. If I ended up cooking the lunch during the day or preparing lunch, this gives me a night off. We have to keep in mind that convenience can often mean the ability to give me time off from prepping, cleaning, scrubbing, dishes, dishwasher emptying, because right now, 3 meals a day, 7 days a week, we are doing a whole lot of taking out more trash we've ever made, more dishes to unload, and needing a break as well as changing things up. We are desperate for that help. You guys are the ones to provide it. So among that top 2 box, most interested, every single one of these is up since May when it comes to those family meal bundle deals. Wanting a choice of at least 2 entrees, or wanting the ability to mix and match. So give me, three entrees, a couple sides or apps or desserts, and allow me to intermix them. 1 large entree and a bunch of small sides is of interest. Family-sized portions of just a single entree, so I can make multiple meals. Again, if I'm a single parent, perhaps this allows me to have several lunch options spinning off of dinner as the week progresses. Even having these family meal options, whether they're take and bake, heat up, or kind of a DIY kit that you provide for breakfast and brunch, 68% are interested, which means whether you perceive weekday breakfast or weekend brunch, consumers are looking for help to take some time off from the kitchen. And there is more appeal than just comfort foods. We've talked about our original instinct as consumers. We sprint out. We want to get that comfort food, especially during times of stress. And that's still really important. Every single one of these has also seen growth since May. And some of the highest growth we've seen is now that we've been doing comfort food at home for a bit, better for you health has taken a rise. That want and desire for personalization doesn't ever really go away. Indulgence is still there, and using restaurants is still perceived a treat. But treats don't always have to mean super overly indulgent food. They could be a treat that I'm not the one cooking, cleaning, and doing dishes, because you see an interest in some of the diet-specific or lifestyle-driven, the healthy, better for you. But let's not lose sight of the need for global flair, trendier foods and dishes, because these are things we are never really going to be great at executing at home. It's a small percent of us consumers that can really execute, a crispy rice dish or sushi at home, right? So the idea of your expertise being valued, your creativity being valued, really has not gone away. They're just trying to find ways in which to meet 2 needs: feel safe and comfortable while eating it, whether that be only in the home or dining outside or dining at social distance. They want the ability to come back and engage. Using restaurants makes consumers feel, quote, normal again. But, in order to feel normal means you have to feel safe. And so cleanliness is obviously super important from a safety perspective, both for your staff as well as your guests. But do not fall victim to the idea that you need to shrink your menu, focus on the 3 most popular dishes you have, and give up on innovation, because that's not going to win for us in the long term. even when it comes to limited menu. We've kind of got three clusters of consumers ranking what's important to them if you're going to shrink your menu. Now, most operators have told us to date that they don't plan to cut their menu back, but some in a smaller kitchen, due to the back-of-house social distancing requirements, have had to figure out how they can operate the tools and the equipment safely, which means making hard choices on the menu. In understanding that, consumers are saying, we get it if you have to cut back on the menu, but please don't pick all one price point. Offer some range like you normally would. Don't give up on the most popular items. We expect them to be there. But then this second grouping is saying, but please, 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 don't forget to rotate, offer new and interesting things, make sure you've got something healthy or allow for some form of customization, hold this, extra that, or offer a gluten-free substitute, things that can help me not become a veto vote. And what I mean by that is specifically hiring what motivates them during a shelter-in-place time to leverage restaurant versus the pantry they just stocked up over the past couple of months is that specific craving. And they crave the things that they can't execute well. They're not going to you for grilled cheese and peanut butter and jelly. They might, but that's truly not the volume of what drives you to go, gosh, I'm really in the mood for X. Let's go get that dish from this specific brand and location who does it so well. So as long as we have a multitude of ways for them to get that, whether you're delivering or they can get it through a third party delivered or you're offering a curbside, having multiple modes to allow your great, delicious food get out there is what's going to help succeed through these really struggling times. Here's what consumers say to date that they're starting to grow a little tiresome of. 31% say they're not tired of anything yet, but almost equal. We have 28% who said, you know what, we've been doing a lot of pizza, and pizza's awesome. We love our pizza. Our pizza night is still, really special to us, but it's starting to get tiresome. Sandwich is also, too, second up on the list. We make a lot of sandwiches at home. We're not looking for a lot of sandwich help. But at the same time, things like Mexican and barbecue and Asian cuisine and tacos, French fries, right? These are not things that maybe we feel as confident or have access to those really cool, unique ingredients that make them so special. So I will leave you with a thought about the sequence of guests returning to your brand as you start to reopen your establishments to any extent. The first time back, that number one dish that you've always sold is still going to be the number one dish. Those most popular items are the tried and true favorites that got guests coming to you in the first place. So visits 1 and 2, we are gold if those are executed well and available. The challenge becomes if we want to get a third trip. If we're ignoring innovation or we're not thinking about what we could do that's special to draw them back out a third time, this is the time they start to look at a different brand. They start to evaluate, well, who else is out there that's offering something for takeout, curbside delivery, or has some form of dine-in? I can get a reservation because I just don't want to eat the same thing I had the first or second time. It met that need, but now I start looking for more experimentation. So we really are encouraging you, especially from a competitive standpoint, post-COVID, most operators are saying, I'm either not changing my menu philosophy at all. I'm running as many specials or limited time offers, or, I'm going to vary my menu by season the way I always have. 23% are going to focus harder on innovation than they ever did before. When it comes to keeping up on trends, most operators are telling you it's equal or more important going forward than it was a year ago. So competitively, we know we need to stay fresh. We also know we have to meet that challenge of managing inventory and our staffing to accommodate our local laws right now. But I certainly would encourage, whether there's a weekly, weekend, you're coming in on a weekend, maybe you're looking at family brunch type deals as a new and exciting offering. And maybe it's during the week you're looking at how can we entice folks to order a couple of things for that daytime part at a good value, minimizing the delivery fee during the day or the morning day parts. And maybe that's a way to have a weekday special and a weekend special that, again, doesn't really focus on just dealing back really cheap price points. It allows you to maintain a concise menu, but still offer new news and stay on top of your game like you normally would. So I'm going to pause there before I shift back to my friends at Simplot. Michelle, have we had any questions come in that we can use a few minutes to tackle?
We have not had any questions from the audience. I have had a few observations come in on really interesting that both comfort food and healthy food are up. So kind of a general look at, people want to engage in restaurants again. And I think if they're like me, just tired of cooking. Um,
Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely.
but yeah, no questions yet. So again, please put it in the questions box or the chat box, and we can answer anything that you guys may have.
We can go back to any slides anybody wants to revisit too. We do have a few minutes, so please don't be bashful.
Okay.
This is your time.
So we do have a couple coming in right now.
Awesome.
Do we have any numbers on the general growth of the delivery business overall? Colleen, I know you might have some more specific, but what I've seen is basically projections of where delivery would be in about 5 years. We achieved by essentially May, with
Yeah.
growth in that to, I think around 6% is what I saw. But Colleen, I'm sure you have some
I
more detailed
don't
numbers.
have no, I don't have like dollars or a change in, I mean, we certainly know technology adoption, like certain demographic groups have quickly started to learn how to use contactless payment, use grocery delivery, use restaurant delivery that were, hesitant before to put in a credit card number or, to put any kind of address into a service they don't know. We certainly have seen very, again, that where we thought we would be in 3 to 5 years in use of some of that
Mhm.
technology, we hit by summer. Um, when it comes to delivery, the challenging part right now is some of the legislation state by state. So we've seen quite a bit of laws relax around alcohol delivery. So clearly you couldn't do it before, and being able to do it now, there's been tremendous growth, but it's a bit of an unfair discussion because it was illegal to do it before. So because of some of the nuance around delivery, I would say that we know delivery is up, but again, it's an unfair measure if you think about there's restaurants that couldn't be open at all. Delivery is their only way to be open. Well, they didn't do it at all before. And of course, now making it available inherently allows for delivery to see a spike. So it's
Yep.
tough to normalize it compared to before. We just know obviously it's up because there's many places where delivery was, like New York, it was the only option, right? So,
Yep.
and that's such a big, dense area. I think our bigger question is to monitor indoor dining, and we are doing that right now. And we're doing it, every other week because of how quickly some of the numbers are shifting as weather is moving along here. As things get wetter or cooler, we're going to see changes to indoor dining that right now, that 30-some% that's using outdoor dining, we would suspect is either it's got one or two options. They shift inside or they get it to go. So again, those kind of numbers right now seem quite volatile.
Okay. We do have a question and a request. So the request is if we could go back to the slide where the flower is opening up on what brings, the sequence. And while we're getting there, another question came in on is there any outlook or expectation on possibly a new segment opening up where it is truly delivery only, which I know, we had
100%.
started to see some ghost kitchens, but
Yep.
having that be more of a legitimate segment.
Well, so we've been talking about ghost kitchens or what you might consider commissary, maybe for, gosh, I want to say 3 years now.
Hmm.
That is certainly been on the emergent, right? Is like, this is super interesting. Here's what we're seeing, and I will let me go back in time for a minute. Like around 2008. If you remember with the credit crisis that we had, you had a bunch of culinary students that graduated, younger demographic, not wanting to do the apprentice route and saying, I want to have my own business, but no one's going to give me a loan. And now all of a sudden, with the combination of technology and financial pressures, you have the food truck movement.
Hmm.
So evolving into that food truck movement, which then after a couple of years, then they were able to get, financial support. You saw those food trucks actually turn to brick and mortar.
Hmm.
So we didn't give up on, we weren't only mobile kitchens, and we're not going to be only commissary ghost kitchen either. But what we were tracking was this new sort of segment where, commercial real estate's really, really expensive. Being downtown where there's a lot of foot traffic, it's cheaper to be on a third floor in a rented space or not in the main drag and just make food and deliver it. That's cheaper. And we could
Right.
fill in the pocket gaps of offering only delivery special food. So as that emerged, we were tracking it. We've certainly seen a bump in that as even your bigger brands and chains who may be launching virtual brands in third-party delivery where the driver goes to X location, but what they're picking up for is a completely different brand name with a different menu. It's being executed out of that kitchen. So right now
Yeah.
we have these two really interesting competing areas that I would argue we're already an emerging segment. Do I think it's going to fully evolve? I do at this point in time, because I think the only thing that changes that is if commercial real estate tanks, which is a potential in our urban settings given the lack of commuting, where that just becomes cheaper. But I still think that it ends up being, they just change location, but there's no reason to do dine-in if no one is commuting to an office. So I think that there's a strong chance we will see that segment evolve in the coming years for sure.
Yeah, nice. It's going to be interesting. All right, so yeah, up on this is the flower sequence of, folks wanting their favorites. Second visit, sticking with those tried and true dishes. Third visit, getting a little bit more adventurous with something new. Really getting really adventurous on the fourth visit, and then kind of going back to that foodie space. What's weird, what's new, what's interesting on the fifth visit. So pretty interesting progression there.
Yep.
Okay. Well, it looks like that's all the questions that we had. We did want from the Simplot side to just let the group know
Great.
what sort of resources that we have out there for all of you to support either your delivery or your reopening. So you'll see we have an ebook that has gone out to our email list, and we will send this out again in a follow-up to this conference call that really is just all things delivery. So comparing those third-party delivery services, some different packaging and food handling tips, and then how we can utilize technology and different programmings to be more efficient in this space. That's obviously, as you can see, just really outpacing anything we could have foreseen a few months ago. So we have that. Also, our fall and winter trend feast is really focused around takeout and meal kits. So capitalizing just on what Colleen was talking about, on not it just being one meal or serving one purpose, but how do we make it multi-purpose, multi-day part, and also really interesting for multiple members of a household. So that's in Trend Feast, and again we will follow that up in an email. And then finally, we did want to let you know about some innovation that we've done in specifically the French fry space. So Simplot has recently launched this summer our new Conquest Delivery Plus that has 40 minutes of hold time. So basically, we could see a market need. We needed to come out with something that could be enjoyed either on premise and outdoor, if it's taken away, or through a delivery service. So you can see there's 5 different cuts in this Conquest Delivery Plus line. It is a gluten-free coating, so you don't have to worry about bringing an allergen in. But we took some of the most popular cuts in our portfolio, of course, the 3/8 inch and the shoestring, the 1/4 inch. But then we also have the tin roof cut, which is a bit of a wave to it, that is really great in shareable appetizers, or if you're sending signature dipping sauces home with your patrons. This is a really fun, kind of different looking fry. Also, the super cool thing about this product is that it can be reheated. So you can actually put it in the microwave for about 30 seconds, and the crispness, it stays, and then you have that nice heat that it seems to emulate more of just coming out of the fryer, even after it's been potentially in a delivery vehicle for 30 minutes. So if you have any questions about this product, you can always, hit us up via live chat, reach out to your local Simplot seller, and just know that obviously we are here to support you all. You're our lifeblood. We are at heart, all of us at Simplot are foodies. So as this has been, I think we were probably some of the first people to be back partaking in restaurants or at home delivery or some of these meal kits. So we're your biggest fans, and we want to make sure that we're supporting you as we kind of re-engage and reopen with these updated norms that we're all experiencing. So with that, I would like to thank everyone for joining us today. Again, if you have any questions, please follow up with our chat on our website or with your local Simplot seller. And Colleen from Data Essential, thank you so much. Your insights are always incredibly interesting and very, very timely. So we look forward to doing this again in a few months.
Thank you. Appreciate
Yes. All
everyone's
right.
questions. Guys, have a good one.
Yeah. Thank you all so much. Have a wonderful weekend, everyone.